If there was ever a movie that would have the lines, "Where are you going?" to which they respond with "Home," it definitely would be this one. Day number 2 of rewatching the MCU underneath the guidelines of my new rating system. This is The Incredible Hulk. Now, I will apologize. This has taken a long time to get out because I have dreaded the day that I would have to watch this movie. I didn't like it the first time I watched it, and well, you're about to find out how my opinion has maybe changed or maybe hasn't. So let's talk about the categories and give it a score. So first off, let's talk about acting because, oh wow. I didn't realize how bad the acting was in this film in particular within the MCU until I rewatched it and I went, ooh, yeah, it's pretty bad. And I'm not talking like one or two characters. I'm talking about everyone. Everyone sounds cringy. Everyone sounds like a robot. Everyone seems lifeless. It's just awful. Now, again, I haven't seen this film in years. I haven't started to rewatch the MCU since Endgame came out. So it's been a while, and I forget how bad this film actually is, at least when it comes to the acting department. Edward Norton as Bruce Banner is an interesting choice. I don't hate it. I mean, of course, I would like to see where he would go with it, but in this film in particular, I didn't care. Now, of course, that might just be my hindsight, knowing that I don't have to get too attached to him as a character, considering he's not going to be Bruce Banner, moving forward. But even if I didn't have hindsight, I don't see myself connecting with him in any way. He's bland, he's boring, his reasons for doing things are, of course, objectively correct, but you just don't care because his acting comes across so stale and so cookie cutter. And then you have Liv Tyler, who's Betty Ross, and well, she's the same. She might even be worse than Edward Norton. Yeah, stale, bland, boring, cheesy dialogue, awful. Then you have Tim Roth. He plays Abomination, and it's again the same thing. Cringy, cardboard, robot, all of that. And I wish I could go down the list. I don't have that amount of time. But you also have to think of Hurt as well as Nelson, who Hurt plays the Thunderbolt Ross. Nelson plays Mr. Blue. But overall, I hated the acting. It was hard to watch the whole entire thing. Honestly, the best actor in the whole entire film is the guy who played the Stanley's Pizza guy. He was the best character in probably the whole film. I cared about him the most. So 0 stars in the acting category, but 1 star for pizza. So now let's talk about the visuals, because yes, I know this film came out in 2008, so it's hard to judge the CGI and everything like that. But I have to be a little nitpicky here. First off, I'll say, hey, if this film came out today, the quality of CGI that Marvel's putting out, it would probably work out pretty well, because this is the kind of quality MCU is at this point. Which I don't know if that's a good thing to say. In 2008, this film looks as good as the films that come out now, or it's a complete negative. I mean, I know it's a negative, but also pretty impressive. So besides the CGI being just awful, the colors are horrendous, right? The color grading is garbage. There is a part in the whole entire film where Hulk takes Betty Ross out to his hibernation cave, and, well, he blends in. He's green. The overlay is kind of dull, so the rocks are this, gray tint. So you kind of have him blend into the background, and you're kind of like, that's not good. And again, with colors, yes, this film is definitely late 2000s, mid 2000s feel when it comes to what the color grade is, because it's grungy, it's gross looking, And yeah, it doesn't really fit the aesthetic of the MCU moving forward, but just as a whole standalone, it looks horrible. And I haven't even gotten to the worst part because the camera is something else. Now, I've stated this in a lot of reviews so far, the short amount of time I've done this channel. I love an active camera. I love a camera that can move with the characters and be its own thing and give you a sense of what's going on rather than just being still and static. I wish this film would have just stayed static at times. To me, what this film does is it's like if a kid just got out of film school and of course the professors are talking about the active camera and the camera can be its own character and it can be its own motivation. Yeah, it can be. Doesn't mean it has to be. There are moments in this film where the camera starts moving in unexpected ways that are just stupid. You could have just kept it static. You could have kept it still, and you could have achieved the same exact thing. There's also some times where the camera is moving, and I go, ooh, this would be cool. And then they cut, and I go, what's your problem? You make no sense. So with all that being said, it's simple, it's easy, 0 stars in this category. I can't give it anything. Now when it comes to the audio, honestly, the score is fairly good. Does it nowadays sound like a generic superhero film? Sure. It definitely has that kind of early Spider-Man Sam Raimi feel to the score. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. My favorite thing that they do within this film is they integrate old Hulk theme songs from like the TV shows and old movies and stuff like that into the score. It's probably the most brilliant use of it so far in the MCU. Yeah, I'm technically only 2 in. I've seen them all, of course. But with the new rating system, this is my second one. But it's really cool to see that they took the time to integrate things from the past. And they do it well. It doesn't seem cheesy. It doesn't seem like they're trying to pander to fans. It seems very genuine and it seems very endearing to what they're trying to do here. Of course, there's going to be some issues. I didn't necessarily have any issues hearing any of the characters. Sound effects are kind of wonky too. You kind of don't believe fully all what's being kind of heard within the film in terms of what's being shown. It's definitely a mixed bag, but overall, I think the score in this whole entire film is probably the best part of it, so I'm going to give it a 0.5 star out of 1 within this category. Now let's talk about the story. Yeah, it's generic. There isn't anything special with this movie. They do a good job in the beginning of kind of giving you a backstory to, Bruce Banner's the Hulk without having to go through the whole process. It's definitely very old style, early 2000s, mid 2000s, showing stuff within the title sequence, but it works. But what doesn't work is what precedes the next hour and however many minutes this film is. The most interesting part of this whole entire film is honestly when he's overseas. When he's in South America, it's probably the most entertaining part of the whole entire film. It's a chase to find Bruce Banner. And of course, that is pretty much the whole concept of the whole movie, is trying to get Bruce Banner to extract his blood to make basically blood clone things of his so that other people can have the super serum, and become super soldiers and, be Hulks to, military stuff, military. It loses sight when it goes over, honestly. Like adding Betty Ross just kind of sucks. I'm just being honest. I didn't like her as a character, and I felt like she was a complete kind of waste of time and only there to help certain things happen. Like for the Hulk to not completely, go crazy in a doctor's office. The Hulk, to learn that he can calm down and this and that. But she just, I don't know, seems like a lazy character within the story. I also hated how they developed all the characters. I hated all the character choices that were made. There was nothing in this film that I loved, like I said, besides really the audio within it. It's a bad story. It's generic. It's cookie cutter. It's not very good. So in this category, I got to give it 0 stars. Enjoyment was nowhere near what I had when watching this film. Like I said, it took me a while to get to this. I think it's taken me almost a month to get to this film because of me knowing how bad it is and how much I hated it. I hated it the second time I watched it in, preparation to Age of Ultron. I hated it the third time I watched it in preparation for Infinity War when I rewatched the MCU. And then when I rewatched the whole MCU for a fourth time for Endgame, I hated it then. And I knew that this would be a hurdle. And I'm not looking forward to Thor the Dark World. But yeah, I just don't like this movie. I know some people really like this movie in this rendition of the Hulk, and they wish Edward Norton stayed alongside in the MCU. Overall, it's boring, it's bland, the characters are stiff, the writing is horrible, the story is garbage. Everything about this film besides the score is doo-doo. And I hate to say that because I know a lot of people worked on this film and worked hard on this film, and people, put their probably blood, sweat, and tears into this film. But I just didn't like it. And that's fine because everyone has their opinion. So within the enjoyment category, I give it 0 stars. So if you're keeping track at home, unfortunately, I give The Incredible Hulk a half a star. I think it's horrible. So right now, the rankings go Iron Man number 1, The Incredible Hulk number 2. Now the next film, I believe, is Iron Man 2. Incredible Hulk, half a star out of 5. Horrible.